on the subject. We have Shri Verma, who belongs to the Central Power Engineering Service cadre and presently has been member of the Central Electricity Regulatory Commission, and he is also officiated as chairman of the CERC. Shri Prafula Pathak is presently the president of the Solar Energy Society of India. The esteemed panelists that we have amongst us, and we would request our Honorable Vice Chancellor, sir, to give them a small kind of acknowledgement on behalf of Terry SAS University for their presence in our university. May I request, sir, to please give a token of appreciation to each one of them. Madam Almitra H. Patel. आगे Shri Prafula Pathak. Shri Verma. And Shri Abhilak Singh. May I request the Vice Chancellor, sir, to give a brief introductory on the subject and his comments on the talk today.
Thank you, Colonel Venkat. A very good afternoon to all of you. First of all, I would like to welcome on behalf of Terry School of Advanced Studies all staff on behalf of staff members, teaching, non-teaching, research scholars and students of Terry School of Advanced Studies, the esteemed panelists, and a warm welcome to all of you. In fact, before we entered the room, I was just discussing with Ms. Pathak and Mr. Verma. The event that we are holding today is actually a sort of a homecoming for us as far as Delhi SAS is concerned. SECI, we are marking this day, the longest day of the year, the World Solar Day, and it's a very otherwise also auspicious day from other point of view, but otherwise from as far as Terry SAS is concerned, our parent sponsoring body, the Director General Dr. Pachauri, was the president of SECI for more than a decade. That was in late 90s, and in fact one of the deans who was number 2 in terms of hierarchy, Dr. Vivian Kishore, was the secretary SECI. And he was the one who actually recruited most of the Terry staff to begin with. So in that sense, having such an event is something really wonderful. And the phrase that I used was homecoming. And I would actually like to thank Colonel Venkat when the communication came from him, and when I read SECI, I grabbed it with both hands that this is the place that should be holding such an event, and we are really thankful, especially to ma'am, for giving me this opportunity to actually taking the effort and pains of coming and being part of this panel. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much. And as I was mentioning, the story continued even after Dr. Vivian Kishore, the ISA DG, Dr. Ajay Mathur, who was also our DG, Terry, was the next secretary of SECI. In that sense, it's most apt that we are celebrating this event today, and I do hope that this is just the beginning of having many more such events. Not even that, there is a possibility of that. Prior to that, the preliminary talks that we had, it's very important. The kind of importance that Government of India is giving to the renewable energy. to have a center for excellence which actually does the fundamental research and creates knowledge, which as an academic institution, we use that platform to disseminate. Not even through formal means by, making it a part of our formal curriculum, but also short-term training programs in capacity building of working professionals as well. So, in fact, I am a very optimistic person, and I do hope that in times to come we'll be able to establish a center for excellence with the support of SESI and the network that SESI brings on table. And we would be undertaking hopefully and wishfully a lot of activities related to renewable energy. Apart from that, Mr. Verma also mentioned, and I welcome him also, Mr. Verma and Mr. Singh and Mr. Pathak, a warm welcome to all of you. Regarding the disposable aspects related to the solar panels or similar associated materials that are being used as part of renewable energy. Not even that, but we are talking of electric vehicles, but we are not talking about the disposal of the batteries. So, I mean, these are certain issues where we are trying to solve problems at a location, but we are creating problems somewhere else. So, therefore, what we intend to do through discussion and deliberations, how we actually achieve the target of net zero. With these words, I don't want to be between the panelists and the audience. I welcome you all on behalf of Terry School of Advanced Studies. Welcome you all. Thank you so much.
May we request, ma'am, we commence with the proceedings and can we hear from Mrs. Almitra Raj Patel, ma'am? Can we start the proceedings today with ma'am? Your presentation is here very much, ma'am. We will show it.
For new areas for solar, but it's not really new. I just want to say there should be more emphasis on the areas which I want to go. Focus and direction. Change the slides. I won't change.
And you just say next.
Yeah. That's okay. We have a lot of focus on solar for agriculture, for pump sets. I would like to see someone correcting a lot more best practices on agrivoltaics, where crops are grown below the solar panels, using the solar panel wash water for irrigating. But one thing which I don't hear about is cold chains, solar for cold chains. What is that?
This is for the online audience. We have online audience also. We are
I see.
we are live now.
That's- Yes, if we can concentrate more on cold chain for minimizing wastage of perishables, we can save 20% wastage. That's a lot faster and easier than trying to increase cultivable land by 20% or increasing productivity of crops by 20%. So I would like to emphasize the need for people to look more at solar for cold chain. And it does not necessarily have to be with batteries. Even if one can keep it cold during the daytime, sunny hours, the cold will continue during the night or till it goes into cold vehicles for onward transport. And I think all the cold chain trucks should have solar panels also, unless they're all night travel trucks, which is what is common. Next. Yes. You've been hearing about so many disasters in Balasore, in Gujarat now, and so on. And our national disaster relief teams are doing wonderful work everywhere. But they depend a lot on candles and matchboxes for lighting. And say, for example, in the Balasore thing, if they could have been light immediately, I think a lot more lives could have been saved. There are such simple grid solar light arrangements available now with a solar panel on the back and tiny and quite bright light with 3 levels of switches. And the person who's making that is very happy to share this technology with any other preferred government approved agencies who want to make it in large numbers. He will just give the smart IC chips, which is really the key thing rather than the dabba and the LED and so on. And I feel that every single disaster relief personnel should be equipped with these lights and also have a few extra so that every relief camp can have, one or more of them. He's also got, but separately, solar phone charging capability. Next.
Done. There is time.
Yeah. Another area where solar can be profitably used in a decentralized, hard-to-reach location is for cleaning lakes and rivers. If you will Google ocean arcs, they have floating islands of vegetation with long roots dangling into the water. And an airlift pump slowly stirs the silt at the bottom and causes the silt to rise up past the roots, which act like fixed film bioreactors with microbes hanging on to the roots and digesting the sludge as it rises past the roots. And the water circulates sideways and down again. And they have been able, for a lake in Massachusetts in 2 years, to deepen the whole lake by a couple of meters, doing nothing except using an airlift pump to lift the sludge past the hanging roots. So I think solar on these floating islands of vegetation would be extremely useful to operate these airlift pumps. Another technology you may like to Google is the Great Bubble Barrier. The Great Bubble Barrier. I just heard today that Sweden also has something similar. This also requires power to create a 45-degree curtain of microbubbles rising from the bottom of a stream or river up to the surface. And that curtain of bubbles, it deflects and diverts all the tiny microplastics floating as well as suspended, as well as partly from the bottom off to one corner of the bank where it can be effectively gathered and dealt with. So I think solar for water cleaning is important. And the next one. For oxygenating ponds and stagnant water bodies, I would love to see copies of Singapore's Jurong Bird Park giant umbrella-shaped fountains. And these fountains have a circular floating raft just where the water falls to the edge, so that lots of birds can sit along the raft and splash and bathe and so on. It's great for a bird park, but this is also great for oxygenating the water, plus providing safe perches for birds, water birds as well as others to come. That's another opportunity for solar floating in the water. One can fix the panels to polyurethane foam so that they won't sink if they get displaced. Next. Another thing, I was at a college where they repeatedly spend a huge amount of money for large shamianas in the open courtyard at regular intervals. Instead of thinking only rooftop solar, one can think of solar shamianas covering the open area, or even on event grounds where shamianas are regularly erected. It can provide permanent shade and also power for daytime fans and lighting. Batteries will be needed for nighttime events, which is a different matter. And then we have yes. There was talk of recycling the solar panels. I would say don't recycle, first reuse. And they can be very effectively used as construction panels. Bison board for semi-permanent construction is so common. I think if you go to the next slide, there will be pictures. So Dr. P. Parthasarathy, who founded E-Parisara, the pioneer of e-waste recycling in India. He died just last week, suddenly at 68. But I had visited his lithium-ion battery recycling facility in Hindupur, and these pictures are of structures which he has made there. A shed, a toilet, and you go to the next one. Next, please. Show the next two pictures also. Just go back one. That is Dr. Parthasarathy in the left-hand picture. So I would urge that the technology of crushing all the solar panels to then extract something or other seems to me to be the dead wrong way to go about it. When we are talking in waste management of Sukha Gila, keeping wet waste for composting, dry waste for recycling, to crush a solar panel and mixed glass, silicon, and the EVA, which is in between the Tedlar backing and the glass. It's a big khichdi of sand-sized particles, and you can't really do anything with any of these fractions. So I would consider crushing and extraction as the last available option. I plan to, I plan to construct a large school hall from solar walls and roof and see whether some trickle power from the residual energy available from these spent or discarded or downsized panels can be good enough for daytime fan and lights in the hall. And you may want to try it in your various institutions. And it doesn't matter what size the panels are, one can always construct the supporting structure to match any available size of discarded panel. Then we have failed solar streetlights. India is dotted with lakhs and lakhs of, no, it's okay, it's okay. We have lakhs and lakhs of earliest streetlights, which have been just lying, failed and discarded because the lead acid batteries have either been stolen or not topped up with distilled water or just run out of their 3-year life and not replaced. But the poles and the panels are perfectly usable, and they are actually waste, lying waste all over the countryside. So Dr. Ranganaiklu Bodawala, Dr. Ranga at Hoshan Patel Tech Center in Lovell at the Garda Institute of Technology campus in Ratnagiri district. He is devising very low cost and affordable luminaires with very bright LED lighting and built-in lithium phosphate batteries, which will have 8 to 10 year life. Very compact. And they can be easily replaced on the poles and panels which are already existing everywhere. In addition to that, he's devised a smart chip for solar street lights. Can we go to the next one? Do we have the next one? Yeah. I think you need to go one back. Yeah. Okay. There's an actual need for about 250 million streetlights in India. If we can really go solar with all of these, that's 50,000 megawatts of demand, which can be met by solar lighting, and a huge benefit. Eventually at almost no cost. It's about a 2-year payback period. And these lights can do very many things. They can, of course, go on and off at dawn and dusk. They can also go dim between 10 or 11 at night and 4 in the morning when there's very little human traffic. They can come on brightly with remote movement sensors whenever someone approaches, so that even during the dark periods, it's bright enough if someone is moving. They can also power mobile phones. They can power CCTV cameras. They can power small broadcasting of weather and disaster warnings and any other messages that one wishes to communicate all over the country. And they can power continuous solar light during cloudy days because it has a built-in calculation of how much battery life is left. And with the weather forecast, decide how dim to make the light so that it's never bright, 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 and then suddenly off. It will continue lasting for the 2 or 3 days of cloudiness that are needed. And best of all, many villages cannot afford upfront capital cost for solar. So if there is any company, commercial or CSR wants to give them the lights, a prepaid arrangement can be built in so that when they top up the money, it will run for a month And if the money runs out, the light stops. That ensures regular payments of installments for the unit. Now, obviously, one company cannot provide for the whole country, but we would love to see this technology widely used and spread. So we invite any private company, commercial NGO, government agency that wants to use this technology. The heart of it is the electronics, which Ocean Tech is ready to offer in cooperation with anyone else that would like to use it. It's not necessary that, the Dabba, the LED and batteries and so on need to be all assembled and provided by one firm. So we look forward to inquiries for useful cooperation and collaboration. Thank you.
Ma'am, it was a pleasure listening from you, and especially the talk which you gave on various aspects about the solar aspects, something like solar cleaning lakes and rivers, solar fountains, solar shamyanas, and how to reuse solar. I think it will surely have gone down very well with each one of us, because we also are on the same subject of sustainability, which we also keep talking about. And thank you, ma'am, for actually making us feel that much more enlightened. In the sequence of talks, let me also now invite Mr. Prafulla Pathak to please deliver his talk. Sir, would it be convenient from there only?
Yeah.
Perfect, sir. Pardon, sir? Which, sir, that is better, sir.
As mentioned, this today's gathering is also special for me and Solar Energy Society of India. The basic thing which he has also explained to you, that how the SECI and TERI, both the institutions are together since long decades, that he has explained. So I'm not going to repeat that. But yes, it's a pleasant feeling. And as they say, there are few things which are destined. Today's gathering is, I can say, a destined. Why I'm saying this? Because somewhere last year or previous to that, we have started this celebrating this day of 21st June, as you all are aware. It is the longest day in the year. So longest means we have a long time availability of solar. So why not to mark this, or why not to put it in front of the people that this is the day where you can either you should start early, or you can start on this day for the next years, that how I can make more and more use of solar. See, government and other things they are doing, but we should start. So on that background, at SECI, we started that. And as Colonel Venkat mentioned about Dr. S.M. Ali, he was sitting there. He's one of the pillar of SECI. So we had a talk some 1.5 months before, that we should do this here too, and we were planning. And then Colonel Venkat and Dr. Ali met, and they said, why not to have it in TERI? And Dr. Pratik Sharma immediately said yes, because the SECI and TERI relationship. And more than that, why I'm saying this time, we had an interest, we had a thought in our mind that we should invite Almitra Patel ma'am. That thought was in our mind 1.5 months before. But somehow we could not get connected to her. And on the last Saturday, when me and Dr. Ali was sitting together, and we thought, why not to try for her? We tried her. We decided to meet online in the afternoon on that day. And when I shared her that this was our thought, but we could not connect you, and it is just 4-5 days remaining, she immediately said, no, don't worry, I am coming. I am ready to come to Delhi for this event. Tell me when should I come? My dear friends, at the age of 87, she is doing this. And before that, means when we were talking, she says, I just came back from some of his tour from last 5 6 days tour. So coming back at this age after 6 days tour to Bangalore, then accepting our proposal, coming here and sharing her thoughts on this thing. See, that's why I'm saying this is a destined thing. We all were destined to come together on this today. The reason is the longest day of 21st June. So that was the background, and I'm very happy that we are here with Terry. Now coming to the Solar Energy Society of India, like you all are aware, and you got to know that decades of the history is there, and we have members all over India, and most of them initially were from IITs and the universities like yours. And at the same time, we have the people like Mr. Verma and Mr. Abhilak Singh, who is our here, and Mr. Kirase, who is sitting. He again, why I'm saying this time, he called me that I'm coming to Delhi on 22nd. I requested him that CC has a program on 21st. Why don't you join us? And see, he immediately said yes. He came. He's a vice president of our CC, and he's looking at the western region. So something is happening, that we had a nice thought that this is the longest day and we need to celebrate. And another thing which I must mention, a couple of days back, there was a wind day. And on the wind day afternoon, I met some of the top government officials, and they were discussing that, यार आज तो wind day है, solar day कब रहता है? So there is no solar day as such at this moment. But we at SESI have started, and today Terry has joined us. So I think this is the destined thing. So we, SESI and Terry, should start celebrating Solar Day every year on the 21st June. And what should be there? Even when I had an interaction with some people, they says ki celebrating Solar Day means what you are going to do. So my answer to that is, first thing is we have to start from our own self. That do I know anything about the green energy, solar energy, sustainable energy? So that, because see, those who are concerned with or who are in this job or related to this, they are knowing. But 90% plus people in my country are not aware, or they had many doubts in their minds that solar used to karna hai, but how? Same, is it suitable to me? What are means? Is it can I do it very easily? So these type of things are there. So for that, even at Solar Energy Society of India, we have started 2 online courses wherein we are saying them junior and senior green ambassadors. These are the online courses. These are for the people who do not know anything about the green energy or solar energy. So they can go on, they can log into our portals. Even students can log into our portals and they can have an initial information. But those who are conversant with the current social media and all that, they will do that. But those who are at the age of 40 or 40 plus, then that is our task. It is the task of Hesi and now Terry, that we have to reach to each one of our citizens, and they have to ask themselves that what they know about solar, what their family knows about solar, what more use of solar they can on their own, what more use they can do at their home or on the adjacent things. And then we have to think about that, what are the things which are protecting us from doing all these things, and how can we take help of the organizations like SESI and Terry to get more and more use of solar. So that is the basic concept. That is about our own family. But if you are working in some industry, if you are working in some institutions, then have you come across this green energy? Are you taking the measures for this green energy? And if you want to do, or if you haven't done, then what are the procedures, or what are the things, or what are the help centers that are available? Can we develop a help center there so that those who want to do? See, basically, the main thing is we have to resolve that we will make people aware of using more and more in solar energy, because we are a solar rich country. We have enough solar light. Then most of even in our olden days or previous some 4 5 decades before, all our life was based on the solar, so sun. See, our life to begin with the rise of sun, and whatever the schedules we have, they ends up with the sunset. Definitely, urbanization and the industrialization has changed all the things. But we have to segregate that what part of my life where I can use solar energy so that I can avoid the use of fossil fuel, and what part of life wherein I have to use minimum other things. You all are in Terry, you are aware of the climate change and all these things. You must be aware of the efforts that are going on to reduce the fossil fuel. The fossil fuel based energy contents which were around 65+%, now we have reduced it to 50%. But if you look at the total quantum of energy which we are producing, even 50% is much high. And only few days back I was going through the reports that we may need 1 billion ton of coal up to 2030. So 1 billion ton is a huge, and that much coal we are needing in a year, and our dependence is on that. So our task is very high. But to achieve this task, we have to look at the steps, the small steps. So one thing is we can reduce our use, the conventional energy use, and replace it with solar for our home, for our things which are next to us. Or firstly, we have to look in that what are the things where I don't need the fossil fuel based electricity. So how can we do that? That type of efforts we have to develop on our own. We have to discuss it within the people around, whether it is at home, whether it is in organization or at industry. So that type of things are there. And Solar Energy Society of India and now TERI, we are available to help you all for the efforts which you are intending to. So that is what we are thinking, and on that background, we have decided to have this celebration of Solar Energy Day. And I'm very happy that this can be a history that we have started this day here, and we are starting this. Now, what are the background I have, and what are the the participation of mine in the government of India and other things? See, the things have changed a lot. Means there in 2009-10, when 1 megawatt of solar plant, thinking of putting a 1 megawatt of solar plant was a big thing. There were incentives given by the government of India, and at that time people were talking about subsidy. Even today, people talks with us about subsidy, but we can answer them that whatever the cost of the infrastructure at that time in 2009-10 and whatever it is today, there is a sea change. So why do we need subsidy? And if you go to, or if you inquire about, so whatever the installations we are doing on the base of solar and green energy, so the payback period, somewhere it is 4 years, somewhere it is 5 years. But 4 years, 5 years is also a good thing. And another thing is, if we have such type of installations, definitely there were the days when the electricity, solar energy based electricity cost was in double figures. Now, if you read in social media or the reports, you may come across the cost of the electricity from the solar energy is around 3 rupees. For a moment, we can take it is for the higher range of means higher capacity projects. But if we think about our own implications or the installations, 4 rupees or 4.5, or to the max if it is 5 rupees. And if the conventional energy available to us is somewhere 7 rupees 50 paisa or plus, so there is a big gap of 2 rupees or 2.5. So that if you convert it into the percent, so if we think of putting such type of installations, so we can have a benefit of almost 30% of the cost of electricity. And more than that, we are reducing the use of fossil fuels. So on that background, why this is not happening? Means if you go to the reports, then they say rooftop solar and all these things are not as per the predictions or what they were aiming or we were aiming. The reason may be it is still not plug and play, because we know in the IT industry, whatever gadgets we are using, we found it is plug and play. We found it is user friendly. So we have to think on that line, that whether these solar energy based installations or the whatever the things which we have, are they not that type of? And so what we should do for making them useful? As Almitra madam has shown the small gadget which is a solar base. I also saw this 2 months back. And in that context, I found that such type of more and more applicational gadgets needs to be developed. And in that context, Ceci and Terry, we can take lead and we can think of having some innovative competitions, because our country has a talent. So we can have such type of competitions where we can ask the anyone, because talent is not to youths or not to the old age people. It is for everyone. So whosoever wants to develop or whosoever has some concepts or ideas, they can develop more and more such gadgets. And we can think of having everything on the solar, has a base of solar power. The one thing which we may need to sincerely take it, that we have to change the basics of many things. Means we are using a mixer or some type of equipments in the our home or some places. So we have to change that. The conventional thoughts or conventional setups which are there on that means we have to think. First thing is we have to change it everything. Means powering a tube light or powering a LED light. That is not a solar job. We have to think that what solar outputs are available and how they can be matched. So this is a good example, that small device which is available there. It has a small panel, it has a LED, it has a switch and some additional circuitry. But the basic advantage of this is, as there were disasters, it was take a case of the climate cyclones last week or before. So whenever such type of cyclones or climate, such type of cyclones we observe, if you are watching the media, then you will see that media is showing that this is the area, it is powerless. The powerless situations after the cyclones are they are there. They have to be there, because the poles and the trees and other things, they will fall down. So that will break the circuit. Then, because of the heavy rains, the distribution utilities have their distribution centers. They may be having rainwater, so they have to either stop that or they have to cut down that power. So there are some 48 hours of situation where there is a likely possibility that all the livelihood have a situation of powerless. In that powerless situation, what we need is an illumination, because an illumination and now a mobile charging system. Because if you have illumination, you can get a light available in the dark, because the situation around it at the time is dark. And the other thing is, if you have a mobile charger, you can charge your mobile. In daytime also, you have advantage of solar system, that you can charge it there and you can use it in the night. So the basic thing is, if you need any help or if you need to connect with the others. So these two are the basic things. And as there was a situation in our previous decades, that there is a one lamp, diya, with a matchbox. So that place needs to be replaced by the gadgets which Mitra madam has shown. So this is just a beginning. We have to find out that what are the difficulties that comes in our life, and how can we cope up with the use of the green energy or the solar energy. So that is what we have to do, and that is what we are here, and that is what my thoughts are. Thank you.
Sir, for giving your views, and really, from Terry also thank you for a very continuous association with SIC and the University. Terisas. And we would also like to acknowledge the fact that 41st of June will be continuously celebrated in association between yourself and us. As also, this also happens to be the yoga day, so we will surely be remembering this in togetherness with yoga and the longest day on the earth. Thank you, sir, once again. May I now request Shri V.S. Verma, the former chairman CERC, to give his views on the subject. Yes, sir, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Respected Ms. Almitra Patel, it's a great honor to be with you today to share your thoughts and listen to you. Shri Prateek Sharma ji, Vice Chancellor of Delhi University. I was glad to meet him, and I think this university is in the able hands to guide you further in your career. Shri Praful Pathak, who is the President of the Solar Energy Society of India. Abhilaksh Singh, Colonel Venkat, young registrar, which you have, and Dr. Ali and Dr. Girase, my friend who has come from Mumbai. The participants, I do not know whether you are faculty and students. It's a mix of both. Good. And how many of you have engineering background? Can you raise your hands? Good. A little less number, but it's okay. And how many of you understand about the power sector as such, electricity? Because I'm a person coming from the energy sector. I would share with you some numbers. I hope you understand them. And I also, here is one team who is supporting 100% solar. But I'm in this sector, I would tell you, if I'm a grid manager, I don't want solar, because it creates problem for me. But then it is imminent that solar has to come. The whole world is for solar because the fossil fuel is creating problem for us, carbon dioxide and greenhouse gases and so many things. So we are struggling very hard, the power sector people, to deal with increasing amount of solar energy which is flowing to the grid. And we have very large targets as fixed up by the Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister. And we have to also achieve net zero target, you know that. And our target is 2070. The installed capacity today in the country is about 418 gigawatt. You know, 1 gigawatt is, what is that gigawatt? I have to know that. Out of which 237 gigawatt installed capacity comes from thermal. Thermal is coal-fired, gas-fired, and biomass and other things. Nuclear is 6.7. Hydro is 47. Renewable energy is 125. This is the breakup of this, and the total is around 418. Out of 418, what would be our peak demand in the country? Can anyone guess? 418 gigawatt is the installed capacity to generate. Our peak demand is only 221 gigawatt. You must be surprised that our demand is 221, but we have an installed capacity of 418. The reason being, this includes solar, which is actually not available the 24 hours. And the utilization factor of solar is around 20%. Okay. If there is 100 megawatt of solar panels which we have, then 20% of this gives us the energy which is equal to the coal-fired stations, for example. Coal-fired stations run at 90% plant load factor. So to become equal to the thermal power, a huge capacity of solar power is required. And we have a target of 500 gigawatt of renewable energy by 2030. It's a huge target. Now, 418 megawatt is the utility sector. And we have about 78 gigawatt of captive power in industries. So total installed capacity becomes around 500 gigawatt. The private and the government sector is around 50%. 50% private and 25 the central sector and the state sector. This is how we do. Now, the solar energy is available from morning, say 8 o'clock, to evening 5 o'clock, and a little more these days. Today is the longest day. But the peak load in Delhi, for example, is night 11 o'clock. Because people go for sleep and they switch on air conditioners and lighting and food and kitchen and so many things are there. So at that time, the solar energy is not available. Now, during the daytime, we have to back down our thermal stations because we must make use of the solar energy. Now, thermal stations have a very typical characteristics. We can't back them down to a very low level. If you ask me that, okay, solar energy is available, back down your generation to 40%, I can't do this. Because I have to fire oil and my flame in the boiler becomes unstable. Either I have to shut down. I will prefer to shut down. If I am a coal-fired power station, I will say I shut down. Better not to do a reduced load, but I will prefer to shut down. At that time, the stations like gas turbines, the diesel engines, the hydropower stations, they will come to my rescue at that point of time. But the hydro capacity is very limited. We have 47 gigawatt of hydro. Our total potential in the country is around 185 gigawatt. We have not been able to harness this hydropower because of two reasons. One is the hydropower is located in a difficult terrain, hilly areas. Approach is very difficult. The security is a great question. They are located in the border areas. We have so many neighbors which are not very friendly to us all around. Maybe it is China, Pakistan, and other small countries are there. So another reason is that water and water power is a state subject as per the Constitution of India. And therefore, to build a hydropower station, first of all, state must agree. Their consent is necessary. And the state population somehow, including the politicians, they think that if we take their hydropower, then we are taking something from them. In the winter season, hydropower will not give you the power. Everything is frozen. The water coming out is very low. It was very difficult to convince Arunachal Pradesh, and where most of the hydro potential is there, to build their hydro. We told them that we will buy your hydropower. But when in the winter your hydropower is not available, we'll give you thermal power. It took us long time to convince them that the hydropower must be built. Then that the result is that in last more than 70 years, we have been able to build only 47 gigawatt of hydro. Otherwise, the targets were very high. We have not been able to achieve those targets. But now the hydro potential, we are targeting those. Now, when the solar power is not available, we need some storage. Madam said that in the rural areas, you can build solar. Someone has to subsidize to support the high cost of storage batteries, etc. Today, if you have the grid level storage batteries, for example, the power costs around 15 rupees a unit. We can't afford that 15 rupees a unit. So the battery cost has to come down, and we have to strike a balance. What have to be the storage sources with us? Battery is number one. There are pump storage plants, hydro capacity pump storage. When power is available, we pump back the power with the water to the storage area, and at time of need, this pump capacity, this works, the hydro turbine works with the pump, the reverse mode, and it generates as a generator when the need arises. So pump storage we have to have. But then to power the pump storage plants, we must have green power. Otherwise, the problem is the same. If we use the coal power to pump the water back to the storage and use it, it is very inefficient and it is not helping us because we have to go green. We have to reduce the carbon dioxide. Therefore, we have to charge the pump storage capacity by solar power or by any other renewable power that we must do. That is another challenge which we have. The next challenge, in the government decision-making process is, in my personal view, it lacks professionalization. We decide something. When we said that the thermal power must back down to accumulate solar power, so a circular was issued, some advice was issued by CEA with Ministry of Power that the thermal power must back down to 40%. Without knowing that the existing capacity, which is very high in the country, about 200 gigawatts, is not designed to work regularly on a sustained basis every day on a two-shift operation or to back down and then come up. The life of the turbine, the boiler, is not designed for this. On a new plant, you can apply such standards. This would need the use of metallurgy, strong metallurgy, which can sustain the variations of stresses on these units. So this is one challenge. Then also sometimes, is a cloudy season, sometimes a rainy season, something like this. So we also want that at such variation, whenever is required, there must be a definite backing down rate or coming up on the thermal power stations. Central Electricity Authority carried out a study, and we found that 3% per minute backing down would be enough to deal with the solar power or wind or some such renewable power. But all existing stations can back down at the rate of 1% only. So again, there is a challenge. It means if there is a cloudy thing, we cannot come up. There has to be a load shedding. We don't want that situation. Load shedding has not to be there. Therefore, we are always thinking of some alternative method how to go about it. We must get prepared the gas turbine stations, open cycle gas turbine stations. The gas turbine, the power generated by gas turbines is very expensive. Gas is not available also. The gas fuel is very scarce. And a majority of the gas turbine power stations in the country are not operating because of non-availability of the gas today. Therefore, this is another challenge which we have. Nuclear is very small capacity. We have 6.7 gigawatt. This is another weak area which we have in this country. Nuclear out of total, some 2%, 3%. It doesn't help us. Although it is supposed to be clean power. The reason being we don't have the nuclear fuel. Uranium is not available. We have thorium reserved somewhere in the country, but we are developing the fast breeder thorium reactors, and we hope that once they are commercialized, then we don't need we don't need coal, we don't need oil. maybe the other sources of power is not required. We get into agreements with the US and other countries to supply us the nuclear fuel, but they don't honor that. Because, the world over, nobody wants us to develop. They have their own interests. We got some nuclear fuel initially for our Tarapur and other projects from US. US posted people in our stations to monitor us whether we are not making some other use of the nuclear fuel, spent fuel. Uranium, when it is burnt in the nuclear power plants, converts into plutonium. Plutonium is a bomb grade material, so we can create the nuclear bombs, etc. Nobody wants that. So if you visit this station sometimes, the nuclear, you will find that the spent fuel is stored underwater. You can see that, or it is buried into some concrete shells. This is still there, and we are not able to use this nuclear fuel. The indigenous nuclear fuel which we have, Andhra Pradesh has some uranium reserves. We use that the way we like it. But again, the nuclear power stations are not the stations which can run on variable load. We must use them as a base load stations without variations. It is difficult to have variations of nuclear fuel on a nuclear power plants. So there is another limitations which we have. So the best way we find a combination of solar and hydro. If you can get solar and hydro is the best combination. Nowadays, the government of India is busy in finding out the builders, the investors who can come around and say that I will build this station along with the hydropower station, supply you 24 hours power supply at some rate, whatever. That is another challenge. These are the challenges in front of us, and we have so far not been able to find good solutions to that. We have alternate fuels like hydrogen is coming up. It is still, I would say that it has not come up commercial scale, and we are not able to decide how to use the hydrogen, whether in the vehicles or in the power stations or something. On one hand, we have the electrical vehicles, battery driven. On the other hand, hydrogen. So first of all, hydrogen cost is an issue. The cost of hydrogen must come down. Today, it is around $15 a kg. And we must bring it down to between $1 and $2 a kg. Then it becomes viable. We may buy some hydrogen-driven cars, etc. One of our ministers is having. But then it must be commercially viable in our situation. So we are thinking that if it is a city-driven vehicles, we will have batteries. If it is a long drive system, we may have hydrogen cells. That may be an alternative to the renewable thing. But I'm glad that SECI entered into some kind of a unwritten or written MOU with their university to have such programs. I told the Vice Chancellor that renewable source of energy is one thing, the solar. But the people in this country must understand what is pros and cons of this. What are the implications? If we have so much of solar, whether we are able to absorb this. Now, government is not able to also find some solutions to this. For example, there was a reference in our talk to a rooftop. Now, if I use the rooftop solar, or suppose an industry uses this rooftop solar, industry can use this power for their application in the industry. But all of you know that the industry subsidizes the domestic consumer. Now, where from that subsidy would come? There is no solution to this. Either we increase the tariff of domestic consumers, or we still ask them to industry to pay the subsidy. That is an additional penalty on them. Why they will use solar rooftop? They will not. I mean, it is discouragement. If I use solar rooftop in this institution or at my house, then government has a scheme of net metering. Net metering means that whatever power you generate, you use it. And if that power is not available, use the grid power, and we charge you for grid power. This is net metering. But government says that we will do net metering only if you have a connection of 10 kilowatt or less. It means that if you have 10 kilowatt or more, then we will not subsidize you, not subsidizing, but not compensating that whatever power you generate, you can't use it. You have to feed it to the grid at the rate at which we decide, and we will charge you for the power which you consume from the grid. That is an expensive power. We buy your power at a cheaper rate, and we bill you at a costly rate. SECI and me personally have been almost fighting with the government that withdraw this kind of an order. This is a discouragement. On one hand, we are saying that so much of power will come from rooftops, so much of power will come from the green stations, so much of power from the industries will have to do this. We are forcing the thermal generators to generate solar power in some proportion, some percentage. All these things we are doing. But the actions of the government are otherwise, in some respect. There are reasons for it. Because the distribution companies are not financially viable. So they want to support them. That is why they said only up to 10 kilowatt. We will give you net metering. Now, why the discoms are not viable? Because we don't give them the proper tariff. You know how discoms work? Do you know how the power comes to you from the generator? I want to tell you a little bit. You think that my power is switch on and switch off. That much you understand, of course. See, there are generators, there are distribution companies who will generate power. Our system works for every 15 minutes. There are 24 hours, and therefore 4 15 minutes interval in 1 hour. Therefore, 96 time intervals, the generators have to commit to us how much they would generate every 15 minutes. They have to give us a program. The companies who will draw power from the grid, they have also to tell us every 15 minutes how much power you will draw. So then there is a balance and a frequency of 50 hertz is maintained. Those who will violate, for example, if you are drawing power, it is not totally in my control how much power you draw. Suddenly today you plug in a heater or an air conditioner, or you switch on, we came here, you switched on all the lights. This is not in our control. So there would be always a variation. For this variation, you will have to pay the penalty. There is a commercial arrangement. And if you draw power under a situation when the power generation is less and the demand is more, you pay more penalty. But if you don't generate more when the demand is more, again you pay the penalty. So commercial systems are there, which is very complicated. I mean, we can go on talking about it. Only the professionals will know about it. But then we have to maintain a constant frequency of 50 hertz. Somebody can say, so what if the 50 hertz becomes 51 hertz, 52 hertz, something like that? No, not like that. if the frequency varies in the grid, the generator suffers. There is a damage to the turbines, huge damage. They can develop cracks. The turbine blades can got broken, and accidents can take place. So much of efforts are there to maintain the grid frequency to 50 hertz in the system. Our grid is the largest in the world. You may know that. It is one connected grid. Even US doesn't have. Germany doesn't have. So this is a very plus point. And our grid operators are very expert. Whenever an accident takes place, grid accidents, our experts from the power grid are called to those countries. In California, there was a power outage, San Francisco, and we went there from this to advise them what to do. There is a country called Guyana in South America. This country is located below sea level. The whole country is below sea level. And they have built a wall along the sea coast so that when there is a tide, water doesn't come in. Nobody lives on the ground floor. Everyone lives first floor and onwards. And they have built trenches that in case there is a tide, etc., the water enters into these areas, and there are huge capacity pumps to pump the water out to the sea. Once it so happened, the power failed, and the whole country was flooded. And they demanded that from India, a team should go. I was also one of them to visit that country. And we advised them what is to be done and how to maintain this and all. And some such thing also happens. My purpose of telling you is that the power engineers in this country are not those who are still learning. We have acquired expertise over the period of time. In 70s, we were learning. And you will be surprised to know, in early 90s, we were ahead of China. We were ahead of China. But China has gone ahead further, and we are nowhere near to them, because they developed at a very faster rate and all. Now, another area which troubles us is the indigenous manufacturing capacity of the solar cells. We don't have. We are only assembling something, and we are not manufacturing. And most of the panels were imported from China. They are still imported from China, but they come through Vietnam. Now, this is very funny. We still buy them. But recently, the government has relaxed this condition for NTPC to import panels from China, because NTPC have been given a huge target of setting up the solar power station. And we had to relax this condition. So we must develop the indigenous manufacturing capacity. Otherwise, the money is going to China only. We are exporting our money there. So no use. And then there are problems of disposal of solar panels. You said something Madam said, reuse them for some purpose and all. Such areas need to be investigated, and more research is required to be done in those areas, so that this doesn't become a problem with us. Similarly, battery disposal is again a problem. So as a policy maker, we have so many issues in front of us. The solutions have to be found out. But I would say we will be able to manage. We are very confident about it. We will be able to manage all those situations. I think I can stop here. If you have any questions on the power sector or your electricity problems or something, I'll be happy to answer those, because it is a big subject, and one can go on talking. Today's objective was to have some kind of an introduction with you, and we promised to the Vice Chancellor that in future maybe we could introduce some programs which could go into the intricacies of the sector. This solar is one thing. It is a common people's talk that now solar is coming. But they must also understand that along with solar, what are the problems the grid managers are facing and how are we dealing with it? Those areas need your attention. You must read some newspapers and the power, something comes from the power sector. And you must keep yourself aware that what is our demand, what is the installed capacity, how are we going about it, and what is going to be the future demand, etc. There is a department in Central Electricity Authority. We plan 5 years from hence and 10 years from hence because power station is not built in a day. Thermal power station takes 3 years to 4 years to build. Nuclear takes even much more. Hydro takes sometimes 10 years. So unless you know the demand after 10 years or after 5 years, after 20 years, we cannot go ahead. So a great planning is behind the sector. I was member planning with Central Electricity Authority, and we planned the power sector to the best of our capability. And I hope the things will move, and with the more coordination and affiliation with a university like this, I hope that in future we can have much more such programs to make your doubts clear and to train the young people for the future. And I'm really gratified to the Vice Chancellor and your young Registrar, Colonel. And I hope that the university will move ahead with the objectives to achieve. Thank you very much.
Sir, thanks a lot, actually speaking, for giving us a talk on the power grid point of view. Let it be from either thermal, hydro, renewable, solar, or nuclear, and combined together, it was a very well presented, structured talk, which gave us a larger insight. And we do also appreciate you're looking forward to come forward together of developing certain programs in the times to come. Thank you, sir. May I also now request Shri Abhilak Singh, former General Manager, IREDA, to please deliver a talk on the subject.
Madam Almitra, Mr. Verma ji, Professor Sharma ji, Mr. Pathak ji, Dr. Ali, Mr. Grasse, Colonel Venkat, faculty members and students. Good evening to everyone. I think Verma ji has spoken a lot on this entire power sector. So now I'll actually start with the history of solar energy in the country, how it started. And ever since I entered in my first year, I have been observing this solar applications. After that, actually, in the government, when I was there for 8 years, there also I worked on this solar energy applications, but very limited. Coming to this solar energy actually applications, see now the technology or means the concept of solar effect was found out in 1837, but this technology was not used for longer time. And when actually the necessity started, when this space applications came, then it was the question how to power satellites. So then this technology was taken up from the somewhere in this stores, and then this application started. And initially, I think during 50s, huge cost of 1 watt solar cells. So that was the actually things. And then in during 70s, when oil crisis and energy crisis started, then this again the questions came how to actually meet with the energy requirement. So then alternate source of energy started, and that precisely in 1972, one summit somewhere it happened, and the world leaders attended, and in fact our honorable Prime Minister also attended, and then lot of programs and projects were sanctioned to the different universities and research centers. And water heating systems was also sanctioned to IIT Delhi. And in entire campus, their experiments were going on in 70s and 80s. And our one of the PG hostel also was having this solar water heating system at that time. Then coming to actually a lot many things happened in 80s, and finally one program launched, a huge program, that was solar pump, that was launched on 15th August 1993 by then Prime Ministers from the Red Fort. And that was the actually beginning. In fact, at that time, it was the highest subsidy in the world to an individual. That was the program. And the program was made in such a way that the subsidy will come from government. That was, I remember, and 170 rupees per watt. 170 rupees per watt, and plus 80,000 loan on 900 watts solar pump, 1 HP solar pump. That was the combination. So the actually why this application was taken, reason was simply it is easy to get subsidy grant approval from the government or appropriate authority, of course at the time planning commission. So then this program, incidentally, I was the coordinator for this program for 8 years. And during that time, because it was very, very difficult program actually throughout the country to implement it. And over 8 years, 701 pumps were installed throughout the country, and almost every states, including the Andaman Nicobar, J&K, I think 1 or 2 states must have left, like Arunachal or Mizoram, this thing. So this program was actually, what I say, it is successful. And the most important is that the people have come to know the application of solar. And solar application is such a simple device. Simply, you have to connect 2 wires and the device, it will work. Of course, then you have to use the other instrumentation, etc. So control and for all that region. Otherwise, it is a simple, you take a panel, take a 2 wire, you connect to the device which will run. So this program started and very well gone. Then in this around 2006-07, the National Solar Mission was set up. And that National Solar Mission, how to utilize solar energy. So then after, I think it was under chairmanship of Mr. Shyam Saran, who is ex Foreign Secretary. So then I think within 2 years, around 2009, it was National Solar Mission was declared, and 20,000 megawatt, the capacity was the target. So in fact, the person like me and my other fellows always wondered whether it is really possible, 20,000 megawatt. Till then, only I think the highest capacity was 300 kilowatt. 300 kilowatt, that was in Khatkhat Kala village of Bhagat Singh Ji. So that was the capacity, and then everyone was wondering whether it is really possible. So then anyway, that scheme started, and 2010, 9-10, at that time I was not in a solar, I was heading IT department and other activities, business development, etc. So in that actually, one scheme the government has started that was called solar rooftop, but it was not actually rooftop, but it was on ground. So the capacity was 1 megawatt or 2 megawatt, and it was under generation based incentive, GBI, and that GBI was rupees 12 per unit to be reimbursed to this developer. And the cap of means this state government is to purchase. So the state government is to be reimbursed this 12 rupees, and whatever the actually in that state, whatever the cost, so that can be added. So I think it was maximum was the 17 rupees something, that can be this thing. So it was really means now, and again the government has put 25 years. This GBI of rupees 12 per unit will be reimbursed to the developers. So up to 2036 or 37. And that scheme is still working very fine. And under that, I think, if I recall, around 91 megawatt was commissioned, and it was put in, I think, 13 distribution discounts. And that scheme is going on. And at the same time, the government has also announced another, I recall that 1000 megawatt to NBBN, an NTPC, this Vidyut Vitran something, NBBN. So they have to then club with this their own thermal power, and then at certain rate they have to sell. So these two schemes, and this actually this scheme, GVI scheme, that revolutionized this entire solar actually business in the country. And then at that time, this the cost per megawatt, I think 17-18 crore per megawatt, which has come down now, we know, around, I think, 4 crore per megawatt. So almost 1/4. So this all happened. And then this, when this new government came in 2014, so I think the first of the task was taken actually to review, to enhance the capacity of this 20,000 megawatt of solar to 1 lakh megawatt. I think it was it started discussion in the first week of June 14 itself. So at that time also, again, we were surprised whether really that 20,000 megawatt itself is so difficult, and now how 100,000 megawatt will be taken up. Anyway, so then another 6-7 months the discussion has gone, and then it started. Then this further revised, and this target was put to 175,000 megawatt, including solar, wind, small hydro, and biomass. So 100,000 megawatt from solar, 60,000 megawatt from this wind, 10,000 megawatt from biomass, and 5 megawatt from small hydro. Now, as of today, in fact, in the morning I saw the status. What is the status? So as on 30th May, this achievement is 127,000 megawatt of renewable energy against 175,000 megawatt. Of course, there is a shortfall, maybe because it was a great disruption because of the COVID. That probably one reason could be. Then 175,000 megawatt. So again, 120. So if I take the further, I see 67,000 megawatt from the solar, 43,000 megawatt from wind, and it is very close to 10,000 megawatt from biomass, and 5,000 megawatt from small hydro. This is the target. And this target further actually enhanced, but officially not actually announced, that it was announced to 225,000 megawatt. So considering that something will come, floating solar and offshore wind. So that was the target, but it was not officially announced, but it was actually under discussion. So as Mr. Verma ji already mentioned, that combination of hydro and solar. So that precisely, I think the survey has gone for this all big reservoirs, dense, and now floating solar already started. In fact, when I was in IREDA in 2018, we have sanctioned 20 megawatt solar, floating solar somewhere in Tamil Nadu, in Tuticorin district, and that belonged to that project to Muthaiya Group. So that floating solar is perfectly, and it is a very efficient, because now there is no dust. If any dust is there, then it will be automatically cleaned from that same water. And it's actually common infrastructure that transmission line and substation, etc. That hydro already is having. So it is a good advantage. Then further, actually, internationally, we have committed also in so many this thing COP meetings, and I think it was in Paris. That is nationally, this target was actually what target should be there. So one was that this capacity of renewable energy should be enhanced, and the thermal capacity should come down, so to reduce the pollutions. This was, and then the emission level with respect to 2005 GDP, that should be reduced to I think 33 to 35% in 2030. And this target 175,000 megawatt further actually revised, and Verma ji also mentioned that 500 gigawatt we have to achieve till 2030. So this is the officially target actually announced by the government. Now, beside these schemes, there are many other schemes also. So like a solar rooftop, one of the scheme. And then one actually big program that I started mentioned in somewhere in the beginning, that solar pump program. So solar pump program, again, it started in 2007, one scheme ended. And in that also the Punjab government came up, actually at that time only 1 kilowatt, 1 HP pump set were there in practice. So then Punjab government, they added the subsidy, and then the capacity was enhanced to 2 HP. And considering that this pump actually will reduce dependence on the grid supply, and that we know very well, this there is a lot of unaccounted, unveiled power in this farming sector. So then this scheme actually to reduce this thing, and then again this pump program did not. Almost it was stopped. Then Rajasthan government took initiative sometime in 2010-11, and it was surprised, thousands of pumps actually installed by the Rajasthan government. And the beauty of that program was this additional secretary horticulture, he was the coordinator of that program, and he pulled up all the subsidy from the different department, and then finally, I think it was up to 85%. So only 15% was the cost of pump set that has to be borne by the farmer. And in fact, I attended one program in 2013 in Jaipur, and at that time, this overview of this impact of the solar pump were put up there before this audience. And at that time, this actually lot of, even one of the leader, he mentioned that now Rajasthan, which was means deficient in food grains, now because of this solar pump program, that state will be able to actually produce more food grains. And even in this horticulture product like dates and other fruits, etc. So that was. Now, this program was also going on, and this program then finally, NABARD, it was given. At that time, I was the head of this renewable, solar, wind, etc. in my company. And that NABARD was given the task to implement this solar pump throughout the country. But progress was not so good. So then the scheme was again redesigned and scheme now renamed Kusum scheme. किसान ऊर्जा किसान ऊर्जा किसान ऊर्जा सुरक्षा एवं उत्थान महाअभियान and PM Kusum. So this is the scheme name. So this scheme incidentally has three components, and that quite often we must have heard that the farmers' income should be doubled. Of course, by 2022, that was many times questionable also. But anyway, that novel idea was that to enhance the this income of the farmers. So under this scheme, under Kusum scheme, there were three components. Time is okay. Okay. So another few minutes I will bring it up. So under this scheme, Kusum scheme, three components. First scheme was actually mainly targeting the youth, unemployed youth, who can actually put up the power plant of 500 kilowatt to 2000 kilowatt. And that power can be sold to the grid. And under this scheme, few states have taken up already. Component A, component B, this replacement component B, I think 20 lakh pump to be installed based on this solar pump. And then another 15 lakh pump to be installed means to be replaced the existing pumps. This was the scheme, and the target today, when I saw actually almost after 2-3 years, I saw today, then I was surprised. The target actually achieved 89 megawatt under component A, and pumps set that has been 2.06 lakh pumps have been installed throughout the country. So, and only few states have taken it up. So this is the actually brief of this solar, what I try to actually just brief you. Otherwise, this topic is just so large. I think days together we can spend on this, and still we can keep on discussing. So thank you very much for presence hearing.
Thank you, sir, for giving your talk on the solar power generation and its history over a period of time and its implementation in various states of the country as to how it has happened. We also have amongst ourselves today the Vice President Sesi, Shri G. Girase, and Girase, sir. I'm sorry for misspelling your name. And it would not be out of context for me to also invite sir with the permission of the chair to give a small talk and address to the audience. Girase. Sure, sir.
Respected dais and friends, Verma sir and Singh Saab, our Pathak ji, madam, and VC Saab has already given you a complete overview and history. I'll just touch upon a couple of points. Early in my career, I worked in Agricultural University as finance controller. That's what I told sir that I have worked under VC. So I always had this very nice interaction with the academicians, scholars, and researchers. After that, from this side, I moved to practitioner side. And since 2007, when I was exposed to power sector, I have been working or rather practicing solar for last 15 years or so. 2-3 points only. Madam mentioned about the agrivoltaics. I have set up a 7 megawatt agrivoltaics project, and that possibly is the single largest maybe in India. And there, whatever I learned in agriculture university and whatever I learned in power sector, I've just tried to put together. and the results are fantastic. This experience of power sector agriculture has rather encouraged me, emboldened me, and now we are working very closely with the government of Maharashtra and to address to the most of the problems that sir raised. The possible solution is in consuming the solar energy for agriculture sector. We have about 40,000 substations which cater to the agriculture load in villages. So if you set up 5 megawatt or 10 megawatt, if you set up 5 megawatt each solar plant and connect it to the agricultural substation, you don't have the issues of peak power, or all these issues are addressed in one stroke. Kusum is a very small step, a baby step rather, which doesn't adequately address the problems that we have of the solar power. And that's why with our interactions with the government of Maharashtra now, government of Maharashtra has come in a very mission mode to set up 7,000 megawatt for the distributed generation for agriculture in these 3 years only. So daytime powers to the farmers through the grid is the possibly best solution under the circumstances, and use that power for various other agrivoltaics activities, food processing. And madam has very rightly suggested that why don't we have the cold chain running on the solar. So if you develop one agrivoltaics project and then value add with the solar energy, most of our problems of the grid, the peak, and setting up green corridors, huge green corridors to evacuate power from Rajasthan and Kutch, no necessity. It's a sheer waste of money. I was director of finance. I raised 350 million euros in 2010 to set up the single largest solar project in the world then. It still remains as a record. But when I look back, I honestly realized that it was futile. It was really of not that great use. Instead, had we set up 2 megawatt of 200 projects connected to the agricultural feeders, it would have been much better and much beneficial to the power sector, to the farmers at large. See, today government requires 7 rupees to supply power to the farmers through the grid, the present grid. If you set up the solar project close to the agricultural load, close to the substation, you supply it at 3 rupees. So that 4 rupees saved will bring out all discoms from the red, will benefit the farmers because they will get the daytime power. So it's such a win-win situation. And since I have always been guided by the policymakers and the researchers, but on the practicing side, you really get benefited from all these ideas. And when you practice and try to bring solution, you realize that yes, this is the way to move forward. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks a lot to the panelists who were today there for the whole day, and they had a very brief interaction with each one of us. To say the least, that we heard quite a lot on the various aspects of solar, and to include what we heard about the power grid also. May I please request the Vice Chancellor, sir, to also please give a small token of appreciation to the Vice President, SECI, Shri G. Girase. Sir?
Questions if they have.
We will surely have, sir, but can just give a small. Maybe also request Dr. S.M. Ali also, please. Please, sir. We should also appreciate the efforts put in by Dr. Ali, because the whole event today, what is happening is because of his involvement. We would request now the audience to interact. Should you have any queries, should you have any suggestions, recommendations, should you want to ask something, please address to the panelists directly. Keep it short, limited to the point, which was the topic of discussion today. As I've been told that a slight bit of, I think one of the panelists has got a flight to take after some time. Thank you.
So you shared with us various numbers regarding the power generation. My question is regarding the nuclear power plant. So with respect to the efficiency and reliability of nuclear power in today's context, do you think that ramping up of the nuclear energy would be a game changer? Given that there are certain disadvantages also with respect to the radioactive waste and security concerns, but I'd like to know your opinion on nuclear energy. Thank you.
We were also worried about this one, right? And we discussed in greater detail the nuclear fuel. And it is not possible to work with the nuclear power plant in a very low conditions. Only in the emergencies, they do shut down partly, but they are not. They will not operate further. All the whatever the nuclear stations cannot work under the very code. They have to be the base load stations only, and in our country, nuclear is hardly 2%. Otherwise, it is not going to help us. Okay.
I had a question, Varmaji. In terms of hydro, how reliable it will be to continue our dependence on Bhutan and Nepal for purchasing hydro?
Look, hello.
Yes.
As far as Bhutan is concerned, there is an international strategy that why we entered Bhutan and set up a large capacity hydro station there. And also Indian grants have gone there, and we are paying tariff also on that grant which supplied. When I was looking after the hydro sector in CEA, I also raised this issue with the government that if we are giving a grant, why should we pay the tariff on that grant? But then they said it is a question of international relationship. If we don't do that, they will go with China, and it is not in our interest. Number one. Number two, we are actually not depending on them as such, but it is a different kind of a situation that we are buying. We are setting up a power station in Bhutan, and we are buying power from them. This is a very strategic situation. Nepal doesn't cooperate with us at all. And when we wanted to help Nepal on hydropower stations, they were not agreeing to a reasonable tariff with us. And they also wanted a higher tariff at one point of time. We told them that we don't need this power actually from you, because we told them that different sites are available hydro stations in India. We are setting up, but only for a mutual interest we were going ahead. Nepal did not agree, and that is why till today we have not gone ahead with Nepal on that sector. Our neighbor China is a great concern to us in this regard, and if we don't help these small countries, then China enters, and therefore there is a problem like that. And otherwise, Indian power is, we are selling power to Bhutan also, and some exchanges there, and to Sri Lanka and Bangladesh, and some power also goes to Pakistan. And those things we do. And we are setting up a system of, as the Prime Minister said, that one sun, one world, one power, one grid. We are proceeding ahead in that direction. International Solar Alliance is working in this direction. And at least to the neighboring countries, we are setting up a common grid and common commercial rules so that there can be an exchange of power between these countries. If the solar power is not available here, it will be available somewhere else. So in that direction, we are. Yes.
Is it possible that there are vested commercial interests that are represented by certain individuals or certain parties in the entire structure of the government that promote certain technologies at the cost of others? And that, for instance, the solar panel, using solar panels on street lamps with batteries, is it really environment friendly? Is it possible that there is a organization to it that maybe China is playing through back channels, and which authority actually looks into all of these?
I don't think there are very vested interests like that, but the discipline in our country is a little questionable. As Madam said, there were so many street light lamps which were built based on solar, and the batteries were stolen. This happened in Delhi also. And so location of the battery and the height, etc. There is a planned, this theft is a big problem in front of us. Otherwise, the solar lighted street lights are useful, and we must go ahead in that direction. And there are many more applications of solar. We are trying to do that, but at the same time, the security issue is there. How to handle that is a big question, because you cannot post at every lamp post, there cannot be a security, something like that. So we are trying to locate these batteries at a higher level so that to approach them and steal them is becoming difficult. But otherwise, there is no, what you said, there cannot be a vested interest in it.
What we use is technology agnostic.
Yeah.
You don't say we favor a particular technology or particular build.
Recently, in the solar power, there are various developments taking place. Myself and Praful Pathak, and we visited Mumbai, and there are vertical panels, transparent panels are being developed, and which will be very useful. It is little expensive, but it will be very useful for buildings like this building which we have, where there are wider windows, etc. These panels can be installed, the lighting can also enter. There is no need otherwise, and the solar power generation and the air conditioners can work on the solar power during the daytime. There are many more developments this thing, and they have to find application. The main issue again comes that it is imported from China.
We take it there are no other queries. If at all anything is there, we will surely share the email IDs.
Yeah, sure.
And we can always get in touch with them, and keeping into consideration that we had a very lengthy session today. We need to thank all the panelists for their answers, that you took out time and you were part of this session today. So a round of applause to our side, I think would be Thanks everybody, and next, each one of us in-house also to be present here. We need to thank our complete team behind this show. We made it possible today. We would move from here to the amphitheater. We would be requesting each one of us to get a group photograph. There's a group photograph next to there, and make sure that we mark this occasion. Thanks to each one.
Thank you, Colonel Becker.